I think we're good.
Hello, Troy.
Hello, Brad. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. We're here with you guys, Life and Grace Podcast. I'm Brad Holman.
Troy Nicholson with Life and Grace Podcast. Thanks for watching. If you're watching,
Yeah.
appreciate it. Or listening.
Yeah, we kind of skipped a week here. We had to deal with the holiday of the 4th of July, so we've been kind of lackadaisical in these podcasts. So we're going to get back on track here. But how was your 4th?
4th was good. I got a little sunburnt.
Well, I don't want to say anything, but did you put sunscreen on your head?
I had a hat. I had put sunscreen on my head. I didn't get sunburnt on my head. I got sunburnt right at the top of my shoulders. Had that cut off sleeve shirt, and right there, right on this one and this one. I'm not peeling yet. But hadn't been a week yet. I usually peel about 7 days after.
I think that might be a prerequisite. You're a weird peeler. I think it might be a prerequisite though to 4th of July. If
Gotta get burnt.
somebody's got to get burnt.
I preferred it wasn't me, and I'm glad I've burnt my head before, and that's the most uncomfortable. It's hard to sleep.
I've never burnt mine.
Oh my gosh, it's not comfortable. Don't do it. I don't recommend it.
I have, honestly.
Your forehead.
I take it back because what's that called up here? The little cowlick or the little spot where all your the middle,
that thing,
the middle of your head, the middle of the top of your head.
I don't have one of those. What are you talking about?
But wait, I bet you used to. You
your crown of your head. Is it
big
crown? Is that it? The crown?
I don't know. The
Could be a
pontile. Pontile on a marble. An old marble is a pontile. That's where they twist the glass and it leaves a little nipple. Of course, this isn't a nipple.
It. You said it. I did.
Is that a bad word?
A pontile.
P-O-N-T-I-L.
He's got a pontile, folks.
Anyways, I got a lot of pontiles. I got Grandma's old marble collection.
That's right. You got the...
Yeah.
Brandy's got a handful of a few things, but you've got the assortment.
Yeah, they had a lot of the antique marbles and postcards from early 1900, probably 1900 to 1920-ish. Some of the marbles are later, but pretty interesting stuff. Some of them are from Germany, handmade marbles, and some of them are swirls, and there's just a plethora. You wouldn't believe it if you knew the difference between marbles. There's a lot of different kinds, and then here in the United States, they made a lot of what they call acro agates with Peltier and companies like that. They just mass-produced marbles, but they were different quality than they are now.
Not the good hand quality stuff. Handmade quality is always better. Yeah, so those, we missed that on your toys.
I didn't
marbles
get well.
a lot.
I didn't play with those when I was.
You didn't play? Oh no, because they're collectors.
They weren't toys.
We played with marbles when I was a kid.
I did too,
but not those marbles. Here's what you're saying. The
exactly,
fancy ones,
because they're very collectible, obviously, but
valuable.
So we don't play with them. We just look at them. But nevertheless, back to the 4th of July.
Yes.
You and I shared the same experience.
We were there at the same place
at a friend's house with
a bunch of people.
Yeah, matter of fact, this particular friend we hope to get on here at some point in time.
Yeah,
and that'd be a lot of fun.
Good. I don't know that he'd fit in here.
Well, we have to get a bigger space for sure.
A wider screen. I'm gonna have to push the camera back a little bit.
Yeah,
he's not
ginormous or anything, but he's a big fella. And anyways, he was gracious enough to have it at his house for the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And
nice
boating and swimming.
Got a nice little lake that we get to play on. Yeah, I got to tow the girls around and kids around on the jet ski and the tube. Got to do that.
I had a little canoe out there. So me and Stephanie went back to our high school days from North High, where we, canoed in PE class at North High.
Yeah, that's cool.
The river was right behind the school, so
we didn't have all that.
Well, we weren't. Cool. We didn't have a lot of other stuff. We just happened to be next to a river.
Yeah, I saw two of the grandkids in there with her. Paxton Ryder got to canoe a little bit.
Yeah, she had all the boys in there.
Yeah.
Any girls? Was there any girls in there, or were they all boys?
I think it was just the boys. I don't remember.
She's a girl.
She's a girl.
Or a woman.
Might be considered a woman. I think my 10-year-old granddaughter's taller than she is, so. Maybe.
Well,
they're about the same height.
She's a small version of a woman.
Small woman.
She's 5'3", my wife. She's
little.
Yeah, but she packs a big punch.
So I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. What do they say? Good things come in small packages.
Yeah, there you go. You're
trying to make up all kinds
Look
of
at you. Yeah. Being all kinds of sweet things on here. Look, honey, I talk nice about you all the time.
Absolutely.
It's always good.
Well,
we had good fireworks. I mean, Nate always goes big, and a lot of people brought fireworks as well to finish it off. So we had a good finale.
I saw as we were
good.
sitting out there, you can see
all the way around us.
pretty much all the way around us, and it was like World War III.
Gosh, it was a
bunch. For us being in this situation financially as a country that we're in, people sure didn't spare any expense on fireworks.
We love blowing stuff up,
evidently,
as a country.
Yeah.
And it wasn't another country we were blowing up at least, but man, they blew up a lot of fireworks.
There was a lot. It went on for like 3 solid hours.
Yeah.
Extensive. I think we could see the town of Mays from Nate.
Mays was pretty
Mays
good.
isn't a major metropolitan town by any stretch of the imagination,
No.
but
was it about a 1 by 1 mile?
Yeah,
as big as the town.
Yeah, it's not huge.
Town's not even really technically that big,
it was
but
lit
it is,
up and it was nonstop. It was impressive.
Yeah, and the addition just to the north of Nate, there's several people. Another little skiing lake that they have, water skiing lake. They were shooting quite a bit off too.
Yeah, like I said,
Across
it was
the
pretty
trees.
much. There was a couple of major shows near us.
Yeah,
and then you could see the circumference, and we had actually really good fireworks too. Nate always invests in some fireworks.
Yeah,
he's very gracious like that, and
yeah, I think Jeremiah and Stacy brought several too. I saw Jeremiah back his truck up and he unloaded some stuff. So
and the good thing is this year we didn't have any like near misses. Usually in the past there's some something comes flying at the crowd or so you got to get all the kids are wearing safety glasses now. but
fire retardant bathing suits.
It's a safe environment from the standpoint of it's all sand and a big body of water. Nothing's going to catch on fire.
Right.
It's safe from that regard, but we've had a couple of human errors that.
Yeah. Well, we had a fireman there. Jeremiah is a full-time firefighter, so he was an official. He was off duty, but he could have helped us if needed.
Well, and most of those people also have common sense.
Most of them.
Yeah.
There's several. I know they don't.
The concern is always the alcohol intake, right? It's like, who's up there lighting those fireworks and how much have they had to drink today?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of nice, though. We had a lot of 10-year-old, 12-year-olds running around lighting them with supervision.
Yeah.
So they weren't drunk.
Well, that was fun. And then I got to go out on my fishing boat with my pregnant daughter, who's, 28 years old. So the times that we get to spend are a little few and far between. So we got to go out on the boat. She got to kind of rehash some old memories by throwing a couple of lines in the water. She caught a couple fish. So we got some pictures of her posing with the fish. So that was a good opportunity. And I think the food was the pizza
was good.
We took a bunch of stuff and didn't even need to hardly tap into it. So it was a good time. It was more stuff than we needed. We were gluttony is what it was.
Yeah, no, it's always a good time out there, and he makes sure of it. He likes everybody hanging out, and we had a good time. We had some friends of ours that had never been out there, and they went on and talked about how much fun it was, and ready to get an invite to come back.
Well, good. Well, it looked like everybody had a good time, and now Stephanie lost her shoes.
Oh, there was a lot of shoes lost, and hats and shorts.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy?
Well, what was funny though is Troy's daughter Haley.
Yeah.
Wore a pair of Birkenstock sandals.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, at the end of the night, which was probably 10-ish, it wasn't late, super late, but she couldn't find her shoes. So we're walking around all over the beach, and she has no shoes. So everywhere we went, of course, she's stepping on stickers and has to walk through the rocks and everything like that. And we found this other pair of sandals that was a pair of Birkenstocks. Well, she had this fluffy pair of sandals, and they just disappeared.
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, Haley accidentally wore Stephanie's sandals home because she's got a pair just like them.
Just like them.
And the Birkenstocks at Nate's are Haley's. So
a mess.
It was good. And Derek Haley's husband brought them by yesterday.
Yeah.
And I spoke with him for quite a while too. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, they were fishing. They went back up to Nate's because of Nate's brother Luke coaches my grandson's baseball team. So they were going up there yesterday and fishing, having a baseball party.
Little team building party.
So they were doing some fishing. I got some pictures of Pax holding up some decent little bass.
Oh, yeah.
He was having fun.
Yeah, it's easy to catch fish over there. I don't know if you're going to get Walter. Do you know who Walter is?
Sounds like a big fish.
Walter is a big fish. The movie On Golden Pond.
Yes.
Norman.
That's
Remember?
a long time ago, but I
Norman.
remember it.
Yeah, he was after Walter.
Heck
He ended up crashing the boat.
That was a good movie. That was a long time ago. Was
Yeah,
that like
it was
1980 when that movie came out.
Well,
1980.
yeah, I know. How about that? Well,
It was
anyways,
good. Yeah.
it was a good 4th of July.
We had a good 4th of July. We took an extra day off because we had a 4-day weekend. The wife and I did, and you more or less did too. You didn't do lessons Monday, so.
I didn't do it Monday or Tuesday.
But you had Saturday, so you had a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, just Saturday morning. That's it's kind of a half day. So yeah, but
Work for yourself.
I haven't really gotten away from those lessons in a while. So it was nice to have a few days to kind of decompress. And
it's good to have some time off from your day to day when you don't have to really worry about stuff that you tend to worry too much about. When you can just kick back, especially like at a place like Nate's, where you can just, you know what, you grab a floaty of whatever your choosing is and just get out in the water and let the waves take you, and just let all of your weight and all your stuff just releases from you. It's really
for some reason, when you said that, I pictured you on a big pink flamingo floaty or something.
If he had one, I'd ride it.
But yeah, it is. It's a relaxing environment, and it kind of makes you feel like you're
just decompress.
like out away from the city too.
Yeah, you can't see anything. There's a lot of trees.
So you feel like you're in the country a little bit, and you could do all those things in the privacy of the seclusion of the property. So
yeah, we're lucky. Nate lets us come out there. Good friend.
He is a good friend, and hopefully we'll get him on here soon. We're going to start, like we said, doing some podcasts, bringing some people on who have just some good stories, just not necessarily heroes or anything like that, but life stories that that are interesting. And kind of a neat thing about that, as we get to do that in the future, is going to be just the fact that you just kind of for a little bit get to walk in someone else's shoes and hear the struggles and things that they deal with. And I think when people, in a weird way, I don't know if it's a good way or a bad way, but in a weird way, when people hear about other people's struggles, when they realize like not everybody's life is peachy keen because you're over here struggling, everybody's dealing with stuff, that it somehow makes it a little less painful,
Yeah, I heard exactly that. And as I've said on here, and I've told you before, I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson stuff. And he's a psychologist, psychiatrist. I don't think he's whatever he is. Really, really smart guy.
Whatever
you
like,
professor. I like him. I like his point of view on a lot of things. I probably don't agree with him 100%, but a lot of the stuff I do like. But he brought up a thought. He was talking about as you're driving. Let's say you're driving down the road, and in your 15-year-old vehicle that's kind of falling apart, and you're not feeling too good about, where you're at, and you might be struggling because there's a lot of us out there that, are struggling. Maybe we're not making the money we want to make or whatever the issue is. And you see some guy flying past you in like a convertible Porsche, and you're like, oh, just if I could just be that guy, look at this guy flying by me. And Jordan was basically talking about this, and he goes, the one thing that you probably don't know about the guy that just flew by you in this Porsche is that he's just looking for the next concrete pillar to run this sucker into.
Right.
You don't know what these other people are dealing with, no matter how much money they make. It's kind of, going along with what you're saying. You don't know this other person's struggle. We all have struggles. Some of them are just, maybe a little bit, they seem smaller, or they might seem bigger.
Disruptive, maybe.
So you can't just, look at that big house he's got. He's got it made. Yeah. Not necessarily. He might be working paycheck to paycheck too, and he's outpaced himself, and he really can't pay for what he's got. So does he really have it better?
Right. Well, I guess it's
right?
It also depends on what your definition of better is.
Yeah.
We were talking about that most recently. And as we were talking about, everyone's interpretation of what they're striving for, their purpose. We've had a message here about purpose, but we're talking about like what is your path to your purpose,
and it goes along with that.
And it happened the other day because I was mowing.
Yeah.
And I told Troy this story, but I was out mowing my. We have a kind of a little makeshift baseball field that teams will come and rent and practice on, and it's not the best in the world, but it suffices. And I'm the grounds crew guy, and I was out mowing. I was mowing the outfield, and I was coming around, and I it wasn't super high, so I couldn't really tell where I had been when I was mowing. And so I was like thinking about, well, I've lost my path. I've lost my way, and so I kind of, for a while, I was just like, well, I'll just hold my line here and see what happens, or sometimes I would look way up there and I'd try to kind of find out where the path was and gradually, meet up with that down the stretch a little bit. So it just brought on so many thoughts and meanings about like how that pertains to life and the path that you're on. And when you're on that path that you think is right, sometimes you realize it's not right. And, sometimes, what was funny is I was coming back the other way, I could see the path perfectly. So sometimes the path is clear, and sometimes it's not so clear. And it was just the way the sun was shining on the grass as it bent over. But nevertheless, it was just a really cool time. And of course, you're sitting there on the mower, so why not spend time just contemplating? But think about the path, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot. I mean, there's so many, biblically, the path that we should be on, is following Christ. That's our path. He should be our light and
the finish line.
The finish line.
Yeah.
We should be focused, and we should just be moving that direction and doing what we can to better ourselves and become better people, to be more like Christ. But at the same time, as you're doing that, as you're focusing, you're trying to stay focused on that path, but so much going on in the world, you're just like, okay, I'm focused. And the next thing you know, boom, something just hits you. And you're like, "What? I'm doing my best to stay here," and you're trying to be focused, and then all of a sudden,
jumped off the freaking cliff and just ripped you off your feet.
knocks you for a loop, and then you kind of lose focus, and you're like, "Okay, where?" Kind of like what you were saying, hey, I really can't see where I should be going.
Interesting.
And then you've just got to stop and go, "Wait a minute, hang on, put on the brakes. Don't just floor it. Just stop for a second and reflect. Where have you been? Where you're at? Hey, you're better than where you've been. You're sitting right here. Okay, just turn your head a little bit. Get that focus back. Get back in the Word a little bit. I mean, if you want to get even a little bit different than just straight on a path that you're walking on, but we're moving in life on this path, and that's where ultimately we should be on a path moving towards, right?
You bet. Yeah, I think if you're not on a path, then you're just stagnant, right?
Yeah.
You need to be on a path. It might be a path to the wrong place versus the right place, but most of us are on some kind of a path.
Yeah.
And it's just like you need to kind of figure out like what is your path and what is it that you're seeking in the end,
Yeah.
And if all you do is wake up and go to work and do those mundane daily ritual things, which are fine, you got to do those too. But also you gotta have some kind of ambition to push forward, to better yourself, to try to become something, and so our path as Christians, obviously, is the pursuit of Christ, and not only a pursuit of him, but to strive to kind of try to be like him, which is an unattainable. It's an unattainable goal,
right?
But in the end, having that personal relationship with Christ is according to Christianity, the ticket into heaven. Apart from Christ, you cannot stand before a holy God and gain entrance into the kingdom of heaven, because he will see your sin if you don't have a relationship with Christ. So that's the differing circumstance with Christianity versus other religions. And again, we're not here telling anybody what to believe. We're just telling you what we believe. So I came across this verse in terms of path. I remembered it from a long time ago, but Dave said it today in church, and it's Isaiah 30:21, and it says, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" And so, you were sitting there talking a minute ago, and it just this verse again just kind of slammed me in the face, because I'm thinking about the path. And you were talking about realizing, I'm on the wrong path, or maybe I'm on the right path. Nobody really knows. But the bottom line is that's essentially saying, if you will trust Christ, if you'll trust Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, that if you're walking in a certain direction, whatever that is, and your relationship with Him has clarity, which means you're constantly, pursuing that relationship, then you're going to have discernment, and you're going to be able to hear that still small voice that guides you back down the right path when you stray from the path. And I just thought that's such a cool depiction. And the coolest thing about it is that you or I don't even really have to know what the right path is if we have this type of faith, because Christ is going to steer us the right way.
Right. Yeah, and that's the crazy. What I like, I heard you brought up that still quiet voice.
Small voice,
quiet voice. I heard a gentleman, a pastor, talking about that. When you're asking for a sign, when you're asking to hear from God, people are, screaming out when they really are in trouble, and maybe they're just praying loud in their heads or whatever it is, and you're wanting God to come to you. But when God comes to us, He usually is in that small little voice.
Oh yeah.
And it was interesting, and I may have heard it before, but when he said this, it was like I never heard it before, so I don't know. Doesn't matter. Why is the voice of God, when we hear it, if you were to hear it, usually a whisper?
Oh, I think I might have some insight, but I think it would be in my opinion more than anything. But I think it goes back to what we were talking about in regards to God wanting us to choose Him. In every regard, as we became Christians, it's not because Christ jumped out and forced it on us.
Right.
It's because at some point in time in my life, I started asking a lot of questions. And it came to a place where, I chose God. And I think that is exactly what God wants. That's why He didn't show up in this, all big white robe, all powerful, and just dominate people. He came as a humble servant.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, that voice, I think it's the same thing. I think you can only hear that voice when you're connected. I've heard someone describe it as like, maybe the old televisions with the antenna, Well, when you dial in that antenna, you hear the station clearly, and when you don't, obviously it's staticky. So as you bolster your relationship with Christ, you get in the Word and you pray and you fellowship and you worship and you do those things that are beneficial to. I mean, it's like me and you. I mean, we're friends. What kind of friends would we be if we never hung out or talked or what have you? So I think that's what God wants. He wants our time. He wants. We talked about time. Remember how precious it is, and to give somebody your time is
huge.
Is unbelievably huge, and that's what I think. That's what God wants from us is our time, and when you give Him time, I think you also are more astute to hearing like what He has to say.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's more or less what this guy was reminding everybody. It's usually, God wants us to hear from Him. I mean, it's usually really not an audible, I guess, voice, most people say. I believe I've heard a couple times, and it kind of scared me because I knew it wasn't me talking in my own head, because I was like, ooh, wow. That felt fun, weird. I just felt something tell me to do this, don't do this, whatever it was at the time. But it's usually they say it's a whisper, or that small voice, mainly because God is so close. If you have that relationship, God is with you. And when somebody is right there with you, they don't have to yell. They don't have to speak. They have your attention, and it's a whisper. Hey, I just want you to know I'm here. Lean on me. I've got your back.
And how much more secure are you when you're whispering? Could you imagine, you have children.
Exactly.
So when you were putting your children to bed, or you were trying to make them comfortable because they were upset and crying or whatever,
Yeah.
Think about the voice you use.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. I never even thought about it. That's a great perspective. And with that, I think like that as we're talking about this, reverting back to the whole idea of
Goes
what
together.
path you're
is.
on,
Yeah.
And if you think about like the conversation we're sitting here having,
Yeah.
the one thing that I think you would develop as a Christian is your path is very clear. I mean, you know where you need to go and what path you need to be on. I don't think there's a gray area there. It's pretty cut and dried. And I also think you also realize like I got a path back here in my yard, It was like if you go off that path, it's a pretty good chance you get poison ivy.
I was gonna say you're gonna
some poison
not
ivy
feel
or
good.
yeah, or you get like something scratched up by limbs. It's pretty woolly. So I think that's kind of a good depiction also from a path where you're going down and all of a sudden you get kind of ornery. I want to go over here and I'm hunting for morel mushrooms, so I'm going to go into the thicket. And all of a sudden, you get stuck or poked in the eye or poison ivy, and all of a sudden you realize, okay, I probably ought to get back on the path.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that though, I mean, we also understand, and I don't know that non-Christians believe the same thing that we do, and if you're a true Christian, I think you understand if you're on this path, just because you're a Christian, just because you said you believe in Jesus, just because you said you believe in God, just because you're baptized, whatever it may be, your path is not always smooth. No. You got those bumps, you've got those little potholes that you may trip and fall in along the way. But it's also just remembering when you get yourself back up to get your eye focused again, because we all fall in those lion's dens, if you will, the traps sometimes that the world throws at you, and you get down in there. And if you just focus on where you're at, I think Daniel, when he was thrown into the lions, wasn't just focused. He wasn't focused on the lions.
No, he was focused on Christ.
He focused himself on Christ and relied heavily on Christ getting him out of that situation. So when we fall down, if you really fully in there, you understand that that's what we need to be. It may stink. I mean, I could imagine falling in a lion's den with one lion, let alone a multitude of lions. My focus would probably be a little off. But
so
that's what we have to worry about.
How hard would it be to not be scared?
It'd be really difficult, especially if you're not in the Word every day. I mean, our lions throughout the day are, sometimes it's social media, sometimes it's getting mad on Kellogg because somebody won't.
Are you prepared for it?
Yeah. Are you prepared for what?
Maybe somebody drives
coming?
away and leaves you at home.
Somebody may leave you at home. How mad are you going to get?
Yeah.
Might get too mad.
It's a lion.
You never know. Yeah.
So anyways, I just had another cool thought about paths, because I thought about, okay, sometimes you go down a path.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the grocery store, so I'm going to take this path. Maybe you look at your GPS, maybe you look at your Google Maps or whatever. Yeah. You know exactly where your destination is.
Multiple ways to get there.
Yeah, multiple ways to get there, but the destination is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So, then I started thinking about, well, do all paths have a destination? And I started thinking about, well, have you been hiking? So you're going down the trailhead or whatever, and you don't really know what's ahead of you or where it's going. You really don't have a destination per se. You're just checking stuff out. So you're just like walking aimlessly through life going, whoa, look how cool that is over there.
This is awesome. Right.
Yeah, but
the journey.
At the end of it, you don't really know what it was that you were trying to accomplish, other than seeing new things and having new experiences. But it's just another interesting perspective. This path thing keeps just stimulating my.
Well, I think it goes along with what you're saying. As we're on our path with Christ, as we are on our way, right, on our journeys, we should be way on our way in our path. We should be looking to others as well to bring along on that journey. So as you're traveling aimlessly looking around, or as you're going, we should be, hey, how are you? Hey, come check out this path. This is pretty cool. You should get on it with me.
Yeah.
Or, get here beside me or follow me, whatever it may be. But I think that's part of it too. Kind of goes along with, as you're going, you're checking out the scenery. there's some good things to grab a hold of, and there's obviously some things you want to avoid. Don't get too close to the cliff when you're
right.
stay away
And
from that.
a lot of paths have many options.
Yeah.
Forks in the road, the proverbial fork in the road. Which way do I go?
Yeah.
Which that those in those situations require discernment.
Yeah.
Or direction. A lot of times there's signs pointing you whichever way you're supposed to need, are supposed to go, or maybe there's a smell or something you see or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to decide which path you're going to go on.
Right.
And, those paths might lead to like drastically different destinations. So I think, it's important to try to see ahead, try to see down the path, because if you're just like walking aimlessly along, there's going to be hazards along the path
Always.
that are going to surprise you. And if you try to get ahead of it a little bit, try to get down there, maybe you might avoid a few of those heartaches.
Yeah. I mean, to go along with that, we're teaching Elizabeth, our 14-year-old, how to drive, and it is scary. She was not happy. Mom and I told her, out of the 4 kids that we have, you are the worst driver. And that's a tough one. She had 2 older sisters that didn't like the brake. They just turned the corner. Just gas, go.
Oh, I can see that.
And she's a little more tentative. She is that. But, as she's driving, she's trying to stay focused on something. And I haven't figured out yet what it is. If it's what I'm supposed to be doing, what I think I'm supposed to be doing, she gets a little lost. And then her tendency is not to pay, attention to what could be coming from the left. If she's turning right or left, doesn't matter. She has a tendency not to look both ways. And it's a little scary when you're in the passenger seat with her. But
well, wouldn't that be scary too? If me and you were going down the highway,
Yeah.
or no, we're going down the path.
going down the path.
I'm giving you a piggyback ride.
Yeah.
Because your leg's broken.
Okay.
And I'm saving your life.
You're a
and
good
we're
guy.
going down the path, and I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And
you're just hustling.
I'm responsible for your safety. I mean, what would you do? You slap me on the back of the head, wouldn't you? And say,
I would
hey,
grab a hold of your ears and steer you. Give you a little, yeah. No,
I tell you, we probably wouldn't make it very far.
wouldn't
We'd
make
have
it
to have
far.
a
We'd laugh.
destination that wasn't very far away.
No, and you wouldn't be able to carry me that far.
That's
I mean,
what
you're
I'm
a good sized guy, but so am I.
Right.
Yeah, you'd
But,
be
yeah,
tired.
It is. Like, let's just die
It
right
is.
here.
Let's just stop. Let's stop and use our phone, call
Let's try
somebody
to
for help.
Find a splint.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many on those paths, the directions that you want to take in life, whether it's your path in your job, your direction you want to go. We just got to realize that the destination may not be what you think it is. Is it really fulfilling? So as we're going, again, is to be central around something. We really need something to keep us focused, something to centered, however you want to say it. And I really think that I've found, speak for you as well, that it helps to be Christ-centered, not self-centered. That's where I was trying to go. Because if you're self-centered in this world, it usually leads you down the wrong path. And you usually go at a pretty quick pace. And next thing you know, you're going down this path and you're going full throttle down the hill and you're just going to crash. So,
Well, even not meaning to cut you off, but like even in our Christian walk, here on earth, we're not real sure of our destination either. This is where we're just trusting Christ to give us that direction. The only thing I'm sure of, though, is where our path is going to lead us to in eternity after this life. And that is the neatest part of Christianity, is that you know that if that's the end game, that whatever happens here on your way there is really not that big of a deal, as long as the ultimate goal is reached, which is that relationship. So it's just what we talked about last week, where people get all mad at God.
A couple weeks ago,
because things don't happen right and
the way they wanted them.
Right,
Because there's usually we get self-centered when we're doing that, because you think you know better than God, and God, I've been praying for this.
Yeah.
Why haven't you given it to me? I said I want this. I need this to happen. But our problem is we don't understand that God may not want that to happen because he knows what will happen if you get it.
Right.
You get all the money.
Yeah.
You know what? You have no money right now. How far in debt are you? You
Right.
can't handle the money you don't have now. How in the world are you going to be able to handle if I give you $1 million? You think all of a sudden you're going to become financially responsible and figure this out?
My chance would be nil. I think that's obviously God limits you for the same reasons, and gives. So I think sometimes though he, it depends on how loud you bark at him. It's like a little boy who's constantly, Daddy, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Sometimes he might just give it to you because he knows you want it really bad.
And let you fall.
And let you. Yeah. Let you. I think that is probably the case. I know I've seen countless parents give in to an insistent child like that, and I've seen other parents that went, hush,
backhand,
hush, go over there.
I got a lot of backhands.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it's just such an interesting thought about I think, if you have a path too, another neat thing about it is you generally need to be going forward. You don't walk down too many paths, the wrong way. You know where you're going, and I think a lot of people get caught up living in the past and dwelling on things that have happened to them and dwelling on things that they've done wrong, and that's another neat thing about Christianity is that when you make that decision and Jesus Christ becomes the purpose of your life, the path that you've already walked is erased.
Yeah, just rip off the rearview mirror, throw it away.
Yeah, it's been forgiven and taken, and that is just a cool thing. I mean, and not only that, I mean, now you're walking down the path with someone. You're no longer by yourself.
Somebody that wants good for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like inevitably, the path is going to be the right thing for the big picture. It may not look like sometimes in the moment, but for the big picture, it's going to be the right path if you're connected to Christ.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you really want to be successful in life, you really want to be successful in anything that you do, it usually doesn't go from 0 to 100. As the 100 being the top. Usually, what you have to do is you start. And you got to build up. It's the same thing as being a believer. Once you say, okay, I want to give myself over to Christ. You don't become a perfect person overnight. Basically what it is, you're okay. All I'm trying to do is be better today than I was yesterday.
Oh, that's a
Take
good way
those
to
little
put it.
baby steps, and I'm not looking necessarily in the rearview mirror, but I'm a better person today than I was yesterday. And if your goal and your path is to be a better person tomorrow than you are today, I think we're going to make it. Usually, that's just stepping forward, like you were saying earlier. That's how you've got to do it, and to worry about where you've been takes you away from that. Your focus is not becoming better because you're too worried about how bad you used to be. And if you're just thinking negative all the time, it's hard to be positive. So it's just like lifting weights. You don't start lifting, you go from the bar to bench pressing 400 pounds. You just put a little bit of weight and you do your reps every day. And then every day you do some more reps. And then next thing you know, you can put a little more weight on the bar. And then you just start pushing. So, I mean, in that path, it's a long path, but if it's definitely the destination, as you said, is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if you believe
that
the destination is eternity, I think eternity is inevitable. Whether you go to heaven or you go to hell, you're going to one or the other. And I hate to be so callous, but I think that's just the way it is. And I think most of the issues we all battle here on earth, we blame it on this or we blame it on that. And I think it could really all be under the umbrella of good versus evil.
Yes.
I think that
100%.
everything we deal with and look at and see is enveloped in that book called the Bible. And there's a lot of clarity in there. And for me, the the most impressive thing as a believer so I became a Christian in 1993, and like you said, it's definitely been a process. It wasn't any kind of a miraculous healing. So quite a long time, and so as I look back on it, I see progress. I always wish it could be better progress.
Yeah.
But if I look back at the dear younger me,
Yeah, there you go.
I think I realized like that along the path, God has been directing me all along, and some pretty drastic hairpin turns
Good
in
point.
there,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's necessary. Like you said, you don't know if that path would have continued straight ahead, what would have been there.
Yeah, and you may have thought that's the way you wanted to go otherwise, right?
Right.
It's shorter.
Well, and when you turn
Let's
the
cross
corner,
this bridge.
when you turn that hairpin corner,
Yeah.
you're thinking, wait a minute, I was going north, which is where my destination is, and
Yeah.
you want me to take this turn and go south?
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely. I want you to go south for a little while so we can avoid whatever's in the way, river, mountain, what have you. And I'm going to take you around this way, which is safer, but might be a little longer.
Yeah.
Might be a little longer, and it might not be as drastic of a growth as you want. But I think inevitably that's where the faith part comes in, and you realize like God pretty much knows what He's doing. I mean, He made all this stuff, so at some point in time you kind of got to go like, hey, all right, I believe He knows what He's doing. I'll just go down the path, and it's kind of interesting because it's a lot easier that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can also a lot of times, if once you get to that detour and you get through that detour a little bit, and if you were stopping to reflect, and you're like, wow, I learned a lot. I gained a lot from that little detour that I had because, maybe I wasn't ready for what I thought I was, and then I had to take this little detour in my life, and it prepared me a little bit more emotionally. A lot of times for me, it's usually emotional because I'm fairly emotional.
You're a crybaby.
I am a crybaby. I get mad real easy. I'm a Nicholson. Yeah. So if my mom's listening, she'll agree with that. Yeah, you're a Nicholson. You're going to punch a hole in something. And I tend to fly off that way, which is wanting to, I feel it in my body. So, sometimes if you detour around something, it's because you need a little more time. You need to slow down just a second because you're not emotionally prepared. Maybe you weren't physically prepared for whatever that challenge was. And like I said, usually it's emotional. So that extra time gives me the ability to just to calm myself and go, okay, let me rethink what I was thinking. Let me stop and focus where I should be. I know I shouldn't be mad like this. Let me calm down. So those kind of things, when they're thrown in you don't like it and it might get you off, but man, it's probably a good thing most of the time after you reflect on it and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that I was getting that way. I'm glad I didn't keep going.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like a yield sign, It's a whoa.
Yeah.
Caution. That's another thing too, is along the paths there's little things that kind of warn you of maybe something you shouldn't be doing, or like we talked about getting off the path, or there's so many things that can deter your path. But I just think more than anything, I thought about the path, and as I started thinking about it, I related it to my own world when I was out there mowing, and I thought, what? How many people are in the world who don't have a path, or maybe they haven't been. Maybe they just haven't been introduced to a path, or maybe they need somebody else to show them the right way to get to a certain path, and that's okay too. Have you ever been lost?
Yeah, I have, and I was going to say there's been many times I felt like I was just wandering in my life. I didn't have any direction, so lost.
Yeah. I was gonna tell a quick story. Myself and my oldest brother, Brent.
Yeah.
So my dad was working for Alice Chalmers. I was probably in second or third grade, and we lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and he lost his job. and we had to relocate to the Denver, Colorado area.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I don't know anybody in Denver, Colorado, and I don't know why to this day, I don't know why we picked Denver, but we did. And
Your dad had history in Denver.
I think he did. I think there was a little dad history in Denver, which might be another podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We definitely need to cover all that stuff too.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, if you're Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Maury Povich. Yeah.
So
anyway.
Yeah, well, where were we?
You're moving to Denver.
Yeah, so we moved to Denver, and I went to school, and the teacher, Mrs. Pruitt. You know what's funny is I had a lot of teachers in my days, my childhoods, and this mean woman is the only one I remember her name, Mrs. Pruitt. I don't remember my kindergarten, first grade. I don't remember it, but this lady was like wicked. She was like a just typical mean old teacher, slap your knuckles with a ruler and stuff.
Yeah, that couple.
So anyways, I had a bad first day of school. And so me and Brent were riding the same bus, and we moved into this high-end trailer park that we lived in. And so we got on the bus, not real sure of where it's taking us, and we were hoping it was taking us to our trailer park, and it actually took us to the trailer park next door to our trailer park. And we got off the bus and realized, like, we don't know where we are.
Yeah. And you're in second grade, did you say?
I think I was in the third grade,
so
and
third
Brent
and fourth
was probably in the second and third.
Second and third.
I was in second, he was in third.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not very old.
Yeah.
And we are in a trailer park in a new city we've never been in, and we don't have cell phones.
Right.
You know,
No.
it's not. Yeah, we were dropped off.
1970 something.
Yeah, we were dropped off in like the wrong place, and so we had to start asking questions. We had to use critical thinking as little kids.
Right.
How old was I? So if I was I was probably
7,
8 years old.
Second grade, you're 7.
7, 8 years old. Brent was 8. I mean, that's young.
Yeah, 7,
And
8,
so
8, 9.
me and him, we ended up asking some local kids, where we just moved here, and we moved to this trailer park, and we gave them some visuals of what it looked like. We didn't really know the name of it, and ended up, long story short, we had to climb over this huge fence just to get into our trailer park from the trailer park we were in, and we made it home safely, thank God. But we were lost.
It's scary.
We had no path. We had no path. There wasn't an option. It's like we came across a cliff.
Yeah.
And the path ended, and we didn't have any options, and so we had to rely on some other people.
Yeah.
Somebody had to help us, or we would have died right there, I think.
You think that's true? Big bear could have ate you.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
The trailer park people would have got it.
Well, you were. Yeah, I won't say what I was thinking, but
Well,
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's a spooky. I remember. I think I was first, maybe second grade. I got the bright idea. Mace was a lot smaller of an area as far as schools go back then in 1970 something. And there was only 2 school buildings. It was the Vermilion, K through 6, and then the high school, junior high school was one building. So 7th through 12th was in another building, but I was supposed to get on the school bus to go home. And the elementary school from my house, what is that, 3 miles, 3.5 miles? I got it in my head that I wasn't going to ride the bus. I didn't feel like riding the bus. I was going to walk home. And I got down, walked about a half a mile from the elementary school, got to Mays Road, and then walked down to 53rd Street. And then I was heading the right direction. Luckily, I was east on 53rd, just walking down the street.
But you didn't have to go all the way to 53rd, did you?
I didn't have to, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was taking the path that the bus did.
I
did not know that it would have been a lot quicker
to go 45th.
to go 45th Street instead of having to walk that basically wasn't a full mile, but it was dang near 3/4 of a mile north of where my house would be.
How far is
to
a
come
city
back?
block?
I don't
block,
remember.
A quarter mile? I don't know.
I don't know either.
But that's what that is, I think, is it?
It's a pain. No, I don't remember all that.
Anyways, you walked a long way.
I walked a long ways, but I didn't, and it took me a while, but that path I took, I was going down a pretty busy, 53rd Street was fairly busy. It was only 2 lanes there. And the school bus driver.
And no sidewalk,
no sidewalk. I'm walking in the sticker ditch. Going home, carrying my books, and the darn school bus come pulling up, sees me there, and it was happened to be my bus driver, and she stops and gets me in the darn bus and takes me home. But I don't know what got it in my head that I could do that on my own at 6, 7 years old. But for some reason, I just thought I could just go and do it, which has nothing to do with the path. But I was picking a path that I was not prepared for. I guess maybe that's what I'm getting at. I thought I was ready for it, and I wasn't ready for it.
Have you ever been
I wasn't
skiing?
prepared. I've been skiing.
I mean,
I'm not mogul guy. I'm not a mogul. I don't go down to Black Diamonds and craziness.
So you choose your path,
Yeah.
right? But some of them are a little tougher than others.
Right. I'll stay on the green. I'm good.
Well, what's funny is, and here's another
Powder.
weird perspective is like, okay, some people actually choose the hard path.
Choose the hard path. They love it. Why?
Adrenaline junkies.
I could sit there. and
Well,
just
I mean,
bounce
I like to. Don't get me wrong. I like
Yeah.
a little speed, and
yeah.
but I don't want to put my life in jeopardy. You know, I'm not looking to do any bungee jumping or class 5 river rafting or parachuting or. I'm fine being 2 feet on the. I don't even like going like past my knees in the ocean. Jaws scarred me.
Yeah.
So my worst nightmare is getting mauled by an animal that of any kind.
Yeah.
And
That wouldn't be
recently happened kind of to me.
Yes.
With a
it did.
dog, but
True.
we won't tell that story. But
That was enough of it.
to my death, just getting eaten to death
Oh.
by a different animal would just be horrific.
Painful. That's a pain. I don't think I'd want.
Not a path I want to go down.
No, stay on the path without wild animals. I mean, you've had a close. So, I mean, you've seen a bear fairly close. I think a friend of mine, Brandon Etheridge, I think he was riding his bike. If I'm getting this story right, I think might have been in the Northeast somewhere. I don't remember now where he was. A wooded area. I think he was riding his bicycle, and a bear come popping out.
I hate it when bears pop.
Just boom, come popping out, not of his bicycle, but come popping out of the trees or something. And he had to, I think that's right. I don't think it was just a reel that I saw. I think it was Brandon was involved with a bear chasing him, kind of. But he was in a weird path. He was in a spooky path. So it goes along with it.
Well,
almost
the bear
being
doesn't have to
eaten.
stay on the path.
Bear was.
If that path starts curving, he's taking shortcuts.
He's taking shortcuts to find his meal, to find out what's going on. But I think we've gotten off the path a little bit.
No doubt.
With some of my stuff,
and that's okay. That's typical.
fine.
That's typical. But as you were talking,
part of the
you actually
conversation.
incited some more thought, and I was thinking
that
about.
sounds good.
Yeah, it is good. I was thinking about this whole path thing again, based on just Christianity, And we started talking about getting mauled by animals, and no one wants to die like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Peter really wanted to die getting crucified upside down either, and I don't think, I don't think Stephen wanted to lose his head. And I don't think any of these apostles that stood up for what they believed in necessarily wanted to die the way they died. And so, and I hate to go morbid on you, right? But I think that was a pretty incredible thought because like our path, again, I wanted to reiterate, is not about what happens here on this earth.
Yeah, ultimately, yes.
Ultimately, our path leads to a much better place called heaven, right? So, or hell,
and
or hell.
ultimately,
I mean,
it's the full resurrection and heaven on earth as well for eternity.
And so the absolutely, and the point is like, just because you're a Christian, just like you mentioned earlier, doesn't mean that your life's going to be peachy keen because of your beliefs, and the same on the same token. And I want to throw this out there because the people that don't choose to believe, I think one of Satan's number one schemes is to give them the desire, allow them to have the things that they want, that they think are important.
Comfort.
Because as they have those things, in Satan's opinion, I'm guessing, I'm just assuming that that's going to draw people away from God. But I think ultimately it draws people to God, because they start to realize that as they have the things that they desire or think they desire, that they're still not fulfilled. And ultimately, I think that's a place that everyone will come to, is where you realize, like, what I'm doing is not fulfilling me. This is not the path I want, because I'm not getting out of it what I had hoped, and that's okay. I think it's okay to be lost on a path. I think it's okay to accidentally take the wrong path. I think it's okay to choose to take the wrong path. I don't think no one really has full understanding of right and wrong and good and evil. But the bottom line is, like, if you're on the wrong path, you got to choose a different path to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Or if your path's a dead end or maybe too treacherous or too dangerous or what have you, I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, I understand some people are in hardship environments, but you have to choose to do something different. You can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people I know, and I probably was one of them at one point. You start feeling sorry for yourself from the cards that you were dealt, I guess, is one way to say it. Look at me, poor me. I was 4 years old. My dad died, oh my, I could have just wallowed in that and expected everybody just to give me things and just kept the rest of my life just, hey, if you need to feel sorry for me, I had it pretty rough growing up without a dad and this and that. So you get stuck in that, and, you don't, I'm kind of lost where I was going, which basically is, what? You have a decision to make. And that decision is to stand and stay right where you're at and cry about it. And I might be a little harsh saying that, but I'm talking about situations that I was in as well. You can stand there and complain, or you can start moving and, hop on that bus and get out of the situation that you're in. Go to another area. There's no jobs here. Okay. Figure out how to get someplace that has a job, or go keep looking. Hey, I need a better job. I know, you know what? You may have to work 2 jobs. Some people have to work 2 jobs because they're not able to find that one job that pays what it pays. But so what? You don't just sit there and complain. Your path's going to be a little bit harder, but look at what you can say that you have got yourself through. You know what? Once you get to the other side of that, and you can get to the other side of it, so many people have done it that are so much more successful than I am. And in many ways, not just financially, but they've gone through so much heartache. They used drugs and they got out of that, and they fought that fight. They fought the devil. They fought people to get out of their situations, and they've bettered themselves. And we can all do that. We don't all have the same path. We're not all standing in line just walking down this path. We all are individuals. It makes us so cool. And you rely on your strengths, and I rely on mine, and they're maybe a little bit different. And how do we get those strengths? Usually it's diversity that's gotten us that strength, because you had to come through something that made you a little bit tougher. I'm a little bit more emotional than, say, you are, for whatever different reasons, because you grew up differently than I did. I guarantee I probably would be a lot harder, probably, if my dad would have lived longer. He probably would have smacked it out of me. I don't know that, but maybe. He was a pretty tough guy himself. So I'm kind of rambling here, but hopefully I'm getting my point across that it's okay. We're on different paths, and sometimes your path is hard. I know I've said this before, but you know what? You just got to if you're not moving forward, like you said earlier, you won't get anywhere. You're just going to stay in it, and it's going to stink.
And I don't think you're talking about taking a rest. You're talking about just being stagnant.
Just by being stagnant and
like
feeling sorry for yourself, and you're on a treadmill, like kind of what you were saying earlier. You go to work and I can't pay my bills, and you're just spinning your wheels. Maybe you're just stuck. You feel like you're stuck in a mud hole, or whatever it is. You know what? Sometimes you just get out of the car, shut the door, and start walking.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you'll get the tow truck out, and you'll get your car out, but you don't just sit there and cry about it. You got to get up and you got to move.
Well, sometimes maybe to find the right path, you got to take the wrong path. I think God allows us to take the wrong path sometimes just because of a lesson learned. And what you just said was a great point, which is like you're going to grow because of their struggles. You're going to improve who you are and what you stand for because of everything you experience. And I can tell you, like, those experiences that are like joyful, the ones that where you win money or something just like monetary,
Mm-hmm.
they're not nearly as pleasing as like finding out your daughter's pregnant or having some kind of a cool experience with a friend or a family member that is memorable, those types of things. So, again, I think it just goes back to when you're on the path, what are you trying to accomplish down that path? And I think like the most valuable thing on my path, if I was almost to the end of my path, which let's say that's death,
right,
and I knew it, like 8-10 days left in my life to live,
right,
the things that I would value most along my path would be the people that I cared about, my God first, obviously, my family and my friends and the people that I've built relationships with. And those would be the things that would mean something at the end of the path. And so, what good does it do to get to the end of your path and you have umpteen dollars and you have all the precious jewels in the world, because you're going to die like I'm going to die. Yeah. And what's your legacy? We talked about that too, but more than anything, like, what did you gain from it in your last few moments on this earth? Did you realize whether it was important or unimportant to you? It'd be interesting to hear different perspectives of people who have kind of been there, old elderly people that have lived a full life. And
what do they worry about now?
Value?
What do they think about? Right, is what you're saying? Because they're probably not thinking about.
Maybe we could do a podcast from a nursing home.
Yeah, maybe. There's some interesting elders out there, I'm sure, that might enjoy that. There's kind of still along those things about the path is something you go back into the Bible, and my memory and verse and all of that is never good. But the story of Jonah, right? He was on a path, and he was actually told to be on a certain path by God, right? He was told, Jonah, I need you to go to the town of, starts with an N, Nineveh or something like that, right? And Jonah said, I don't want to do that. Well, I need you to go to this town, and I need you to tell them that they're doing wrong, and I'm going to just more like he's going to wipe them out. And it's like,
by the way, Nineveh was a guess. I don't know.
It's something like that. It's in, I don't think it's not the movie. What was that movie? It doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's along those lines. Starts with an N and sounds like Nineveh.
Not Nazareth.
Not Nazareth. But that town he was asked to go to.
The end town.
The end town. He was asked to go there to give them a message. And God was tired of their ways, and if you read the Bible, I think the town of like 120 some thousand people or whatever it was kind of more or less where we're at today in a lot of ways, of some of the things that they were doing and they're going through, and they kind of lost their path as a whole. But Jonah was scared to do that. He didn't want to do it. I mean, this is just in a nutshell snippet of the story, because again, I'm not quoting Bible and verse. I'm giving you the my version of the story for those
The
that you know it.
the
I'm paraphrasing on it. So Noah basically ran away from God, he thought. And he's like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing that. He hops on a boat. He sets sail, and a big storm comes, on this new path that he chose for himself. And the storm comes, and it's unbelievable. The boat's about ready to capsize, and everybody's going, back then they were like, if we have a storm like this, God is mad at somebody. Who on this boat made God mad? And they go around asking people, and Jonah was like, yeah, it was me. All right, we're going to throw you over. So he went from walking on the dirt to running into the water, big storm. The guys toss him off into the ocean. Storm passes. They survive. Jonah's drowning. God comes along, sends a big fish
or
whale.
Yeah.
And so he went from walking on ground, stormy weather, drowning. Now he's swallowed by a fish. He's inside the belly of a whale for about 3 days. While he's in there on his new path, again, he's like, he's repenting. He's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I will do what you ask. I shouldn't have done what I've done. I will trust you and do what I'm supposed to.
Just help me get back on the right path.
Get me back on the path where you want me.
Yeah.
Whale comes, but, regurgitates him back up to the beach. He immediately hightails it to where he was supposed to go on that path to begin with. And he gets to town, tells these people basically the story of what God wanted him to tell, probably the story of what he just experienced and how God brought him out of that. Whole town repents. I think God changes his mind, if that's the way it works. And then he forgave the town, more or less. So, I mean, that path, if he just would have done what he was supposed to do.
We've had so many conversations about paths, if you think about it, like narrow is the path, which leads to life.
Narrow gate,
wide is the gate. Also, we talked about the soil along the path. Sometimes that path isn't very fertile. Mm-hmm. And, of course, most paths aren't fertile. Mm-hmm. Most paths don't have stuff growing on them, right? So, I mean, that would be a pretty good indicator you're on the wrong path if you see a bunch of stuff growing on it.
Yeah. Well, maybe, depending on, I guess, situations.
Maybe you're looking for butterflies and you don't care.
It's okay. It's a really small path.
Yeah. Well, the point is path, the word path, it really, really made me think about a lot of stuff, and obviously it did you too. So I just thought it would be a neat topic to just kind of bounce around, and obviously it incited some thought and conversation, and hopefully it does with the people that are listening. And I hope we did. I mean, I'm certain that there's a lot more interesting perspective. In relation to
educated ideas. As far as ministry goes, that people could probably cite all kinds of stuff in the Bible.
About path
that talks about it, but that's not who we are, and we don't pretend to be, right? I mean, you've got a lot of Bible verses. You pulled that one up today, and that was a great one. But the situation is, we're walking this path, and we're trying to take it, day by day.
Well, I think we are taking it day by day. Yeah. I think, can you do it any other way?
People try, I think.
I think they do. They try to set themselves up for what they think is going to happen in the future. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But the bottom line is we're really not in control of it.
Right.
I mean, you should have goals and aspirations and work hard and try to do things, that
you should plan some.
Oh yeah. I think the monetary path is okay. I mean, if you have nice things and you have a car and you have the necessities that you need to get from point A to point B and be able to feed yourself and have shelter, and those things are, no one's going to fault you for those things, and no one's going to fault you for being filthy rich. I just think that regardless of whether you're poor or whether you're rich monetarily, you can all be on the same path I'm on.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about Christianity is it's a come one, come all thing. It's not suited for any certain person. There's no there's no right or wrong way to be as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of realizing that there's more to all this than just living and dying. That's not a good path. If that's the end of your path is death, and that's kind of mundane, and that's not. I mean, I'm just going to walk down a path. I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to walk down a path. I'm going to jump off this cliff at the end, and it's going to be it.
And I'm okay with that. I saw a quote. I don't know who quoted it. I think I've got it right. Happiness is not getting everything you want. Happiness is being happy with everything you have.
That's good. Contentment, I would call that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just like Paul said, I've lived with little and I've lived with a lot, and I've learned to be content with both.
Right.
And I think that's just the bottom line is happiness can also, I think,
it's fading.
It could be joy. You have joy. I think a lot of times happiness can also be from an external circumstance, like money or something like that. A promotion makes you happy. Yeah. Or I think even not getting the promotion, you can still have joy.
Yes.
Because you learn to put Christ in the center of it. And when you don't get that promotion you think you should have had, then you should thank God, not curse him, because
you don't know.
It's likely that would have led you somewhere you didn't want to be.
Path.
The wrong path. Even though it seemed like the right one.
Yeah, you never know. Well, I think we may have come to the end of this path.
Maybe we did. What I look forward to?
What's that?
A path of gold.
Yeah.
A path of gold. Streets.
Like it. Streets of gold.
Streets of gold.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to like it, share it, subscribe to YouTube. We're out there on the Spotify and the Amazon Music and iTunes and iHeartRadio and a couple other ones that I forget the name of, but we're hard to find. I'll one of these days share the links.
Yes, absolutely. Troy, as usual.
Yeah. I had fun.
Me too.
Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye,
you guys
folks.
have a good.
Later. Love the bell.